It's not about motivation. Winners need discipline. Wake up and win today. Discipline comes from within.
Boxing King Media here with Dominic Ingle. Dom, it looks like you've either just been collecting money from someone or been to somewhere that, like a formal meeting or something.
Yeah, well, I collected some money yesterday. We had a fighter on down in Coventry at a show, and we had a good result, and we had a good payday out of that. So, to be honest, usually when we do these interviews in this gym on a Sunday, like you said, it's usually cold. And I've had this coat probably about 3 or 4 years, and I've probably wore it twice. So I thought I'll put the coat on in the gym, and luckily the heating's working today, so it's actually a bit warm.
I will say this is the warmest Sunday I've ever had in this gym, so thank you for turning the heating on. You mentioned it there, Brad Goldsmith, one of your fighters. People are always wondering, who does Dom train? Well, Brad Goldsmith is one of them, upcoming middleweight.
Yeah, middleweight he is, yeah.
Undefeated, and I was watching last night and they kept saying big ticket seller, and I know Adam Smith loves using that line, but I understand he is genuinely a big ticket seller.
Oh, he's a well-liked lad in Coventry. It's the first, he's boxed in the Midlands a few times, but this is the first time in his hometown, and they really turned out for him. I think he did about 600 tickets. Everybody came to watch him. It was a tremendous night. They put him on last, kept the crowd in, and put on a performance. 2 rounds, and it was all over. And he was over the moon. Finally, he's gone into double figures on his record, 10-0. He's been a steady build, steady process, and he's doing really well. So onwards and upwards for the next 12 months.
What is the plan with him? Because I know you, and speaking to your brother John, you guys are really big on building fighters slowly. But we've seen in recent times with certain promoters that they're willing to chuck fighters in. So where are you with that? And where do you kind of draw the line and say, right, you're ready now?
Well, there's some interesting fights ahead of him. You've got some good fighters in the Midlands. You've got Tyler Denny, European champion middleweight. You've got Nathan Heaney from Stoke, British champion. We've had Nathan up here sparring. Liam Williams and other fighters. I think Brad's even sparred him himself, so that'd be an interesting fight. He's British champion. So I think the next 12 months are going to be, stepping up in fights. He's got the first 10 fights under his belt now. It's a case of advancing him forwards. He's had experience. We had him sparring last year with Kevin Saggio, the European, I think super middleweight champion is. Sparring with him, so he's got lots of experience. It's a case of now putting him in the fights, in the meaningful fights, and advancing his career forward, moving him up the ratings.
And he's not with a promoter at the moment?
He's no need to be with a promoter because the amount of tickets he sells, he can put him on any promoter shows. We've worked with him with Josh Whale, John Cole Greaves in the John Pegg. So yeah, we've had him with a few promoters. And you can put him on any show. You could even run a show with him yourself if you wanted to. But for convenience purposes, we can just drop him on anybody's shows, and he's always going to cover himself and put a load of money in the pot. So he's a good attribute.
In case anybody was wondering, that was young Luca Ingle, who's carrying the family traditions on, chipping in the background there. You just said there about you can basically freelance. What are the advantages of that? Because people will be wondering why not just go with the promoter?
The reason you have a promoter is to build your profile, don't you? So a lot of kids, if you're a good amateur, you've been on GB, and you've got you've won titles, you're going to get snapped up, by a promoter. The promoters, the TV promoters, Eddie and Frank Warren, are going to take the cream of the crop. So that's not available to everybody. And Brad was a good level amateur. Won some decent competitions, and he went around a few people first, and through a mutual friend he ended up here, and the mutual friend knows that we build fighters, and Brad, fair play to him, he's built his profile himself, his fan base, he's done it all on himself. He's a lovely kid, he's got a good network, so he's doing the job, so to speak, of the promoter. And so why do we need to tie him to anybody? We had a similar fighter years ago called Lee McAllister from Aberdeen, fantastic, good fighter, ran shows in Aberdeen on himself, covered everybody else. Your fighter Tyan Booth was on a couple of the shows. So if you can do that,
my fighter.
Yeah, well, I like to call him your fighter because you're rebuilding him. But he was another one who was a good character. He had lots of fans. He had a good style of fighting. And he promoted himself, but there's no TV, and sometimes kids get a bit carried away with, I want to be on TV, I want people to see me, but sometimes you want to be in control of, you know, your own destination. And if you can build your record up 10, 15 fights, you've got a better chance going to bigger promoters when you've got something to offer.
Is it similar to what Josh Warrington did?
Yeah, in a roundabout way, built himself up, and you know, even with Kel to a certain degree, you know, Kel had, you know, probably 10, 12, 15 fights before he really got onto a big promoter. So sometimes that's the best way to do it.
And will they make more money doing it that way, or being with the promoter early?
No, if you unless you're a big name, you can negotiate yourself a big contract on what you potentially can do. You know, the best way is to do it the way we're doing it, because you can pick and choose your opponents, you can build them steady, you can, you know, there's no restrictions, nobody's holding you back, and you can do the work yourself, and you've got the fighter's best interests. Imagine if you're a promoter, you've got 3 or 4 middleweights, and you know, one's a massive ticket seller, one's a good fighter. It's like you're competing with the people on the same team, and eventually, you know, as you see with some of these big promoters, they just offset them against each other, which is fine, and the strongest come through. But with us, we've always done it this way. We see a kid with a bit of potential, and we take the time out and we place them in good places to fight, strategic places, and build them up, and that's how you do it.
Fair play. You mentioned him there, the cult leader, Tyan Booth. We saw last night he pulled in an audience of almost 40,000 people watching him fight for in an unlicensed fight, and he was a bit of I think, because obviously I spoke to him quite a bit in the build-up to this, and he felt like he had to redeem himself, because jokes aside, what happened last time, he felt quite ashamed of it.
Yeah.
I know he'll laugh it off, but he felt like he had to kind of correct it. And did you watch it?
I watched the first fight, and you know, you could see the look on Tyan's face as the look was, you know, in my brain I can do this because I've done it for years and years and years, but the body can't keep up with the demand. And it was, you know, the look on his face was, it was almost reminded me when Joshua boxed Ruiz the first time, that Joshua knew stuff had been going off in that camp and he wasn't right, and you know, he was getting clipped and he was all over the place, and he was in the corner blinking and thinking, and he pulled himself out of that fight, Anthony Joshua. You know, nobody pulled him out. He made the decision. He more or less like, you know, there were times when he was boxing himself back into that Ruiz fight. Then he'd get clipped and he'd be all over again. You could just see him thinking, no matter what I'm doing now, this is not going to get any better. I need to quit while I can, and I'm going to have to regroup and come back. And it was the same with Tyan. He kind of had that look on his face saying, I thought I could do this, but my body's not willing. And this time he's gone and he's trained a bit better and been more prepared. And it was interesting because he had the fella down 2 or 3 times. So, you know, maybe Tyan's going to start digging in there and having a bit of incentive and get fitter.
Do you think it was a bit of redemption? Because you've obviously known him a long time, and I felt like looking at him, he genuinely was, obviously there was a big gap in levels, etc., but you had to come down a few levels just to see what he had.
Yeah, you will in a roundabout way, regardless of what you're losing at. Like, we used to have Nazim Ahmed in this gym. He was that competitive. He'd be gutted if he lost at flipping a coin. He don't like, it's just coin flipping. Anything, he didn't want to lose at anything. Pool, flipping coins, chucking paper balls in a basket, you know, holding his breath underwater for the longest. Everything, it was a competition. So, you know, I can imagine with Tyan that, you know, even though it was low level, it's the first rung on the ladder again. Maybe he's going to progress upwards. Who knows, he's still of an age where he could probably still get his pro license.
I think he's got interest in misfits, you know, if it potentially comes about. We're going to catch up with him soon, but I think he may be calling out the Paul brothers, and I think he feels like he can do something like that.
Definitely.
You've been watching the series?
Yeah.
Enjoying it?
Yeah, it's good. I'm saying he has got his following, Tyan, and he's a character. Like I said, I spent a lot of time with Tyan over the years. So, you know, still see him again rolling in here and training in the middle of the night and, you know, doing his thing.
Well, I found Liam Cameron told me a story about him the other week, apparently, where he was having a shower. I think your dad locked up and he walked out, and it took him 4 hours to figure out that he can get out the fire exit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't think he got a phone to phone anybody to let him out.
Yeah, that's legendary in itself. So let's move on to last week's show. At the weekend, we saw a big heavyweight dust-up in Saudi, Riyadh. Anthony Joshua, we saw him take on Francis Ngannou. I'm just trying to think, like, the pre-fight build-up. A lot of people were like, you know, nobody could really know what was going to happen. Majority of the opinion was the fight's going to go on points. I know we never got an interview done, but I know over the phone you told me that you felt AJ would stop him in 3 rounds, and if it was anything more than that, something's not right. So what did you think?
Well, I think originally when we talked about it months and months ago, and I think you asked me on the back end of interest, it's going to be a tough fight that for Joshua, and that he's got to be clever because Ngannou can punch, and you don't want to really be in range with him. But as time went on, and you saw Joshua getting his confidence back with his last couple of fights, that realistically, when you look at it now from the result of the weekend, and Ngannou only in his 2nd professional fight, people were saying to me, that puts Joshua right back up there now, he's proved a point. And yeah, he has in a way, because, on that performance, people are saying that, look what he's going to do to Tyson. And I said, look, don't get ahead of yourselves. What you've got to remember is that Anthony Joshua's got a 90% knockout ratio. Tyson Fury's got what, do you know?
I think it's about 70.
70. Joseph Parker, 65. Now, realistically, Joshua's game is banging people out. That's what it is. Now, if you've got 2 people who are punchers, and you've got one who's very inexperienced as a boxer, and people say, yeah, but he's had all these fights. Well, Ngannou is an MMA fighter, and he uses 2 legs and 2 arms. So if you take his legs out, he's got 50% of his game. That's like putting Joshua in a fight with Tyson Fury with 1 arm tied behind his back. That's his 50%. So realistically, we should really have expected that to happen, because Joshua can bang. He's a much more powerful puncher than Tyson Fury. He is. There's no doubt about that. So just because he's banged out Ngannou doesn't mean it's going to be possible he's going to bang out Tyson, because Tyson's a good boxer. Example, George Foreman back in the day. I can remember speaking to my dad, and when that fight came about, my dad said that George Foreman's a complete animal. Everybody feared for Ali at the time because he was coming to the back end of his career. And he was going through everybody, Frazier, banging everybody out. But when he boxed Ali, who wasn't a big puncher, very, very good boxer at the back end of his career, he completely bamboozled George Foreman, burnt him out and knocked him out. And it's a very similar kind of thing. You could compare Tyson and Joshua, because Joshua has got the power. He's not got the boxing ability of Tyson, and he's not got the boxing ability of Usyk. So you can't say because they've had a common opponent that, in that case, then Joshua's going to beat Tyson, because it's a totally different fight. So, fair play to Joshua. He's come through the dark times. I remember talking a few interviews back, people saying that, mentally now he's lost it, Joshua. And I said, well, not really, because he's still doing it. He's still going through the process, still he's building his confidence. And I think one of the main things that Ben Davison's done with him is he's built his confidence. He's been around a lot of fighters, Ben Davison, Tyson Fury, Billy Joe Saunders, high-level athletes. And you get experience then with dealing, and they're not the easiest people to deal with. You might think, and I don't mean that in a bad way, boxers are complicated people. So if you can learn how to handle them and how to manage how they are and manage the training camps and get them on track, you can turn them into, good fighters. And I think what Ben's done with Joshua is he's given that kind of grounding a little bit. And over the years, Ben Davison's had the experience of dealing with the difficult people. So I don't think he's, changed anything about Joshua. I think he's just whittled out the stuff, what doesn't need to be there. Got his mind straight, give him the belief back in himself, and Joshua's also got the belief in himself from the fights he's had since Usyk. And looking at the horizon and look at Riyadh, everybody now, Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua, are making Tyson Fury look bad, to be honest. His performance compared to theirs is been the worst one. So, it's opening everything up. Look at Joseph Parker, the ups and downs he's had in his career. Getting beat by Joyce. And Dillian White. And then Zhang banging out Joyce. And then Joseph Parker beating Zhang. It's like A beats B, B beats C, and C beats A. It's that kind of thing. So, you're looking now where Tyson seemed to be miles out in front of everybody. It seems now that everybody's closing the gap. and the hot on his heels. So it's going to be interesting now. And you look, I was surprised that Tyson was over in Saudi for that fight, because we've heard nothing from Usyk. Usyk's got his head down, he's still in training camp, doing his training, working away behind the scenes. And that's what you've got to do. Take yourself away from the limelight and concentrate on the big job in front of you. And I think I think now, just looking at how it's all panning out, the Ngannou fight for Tyson flying all over the place. He's got about 10 weeks to the fight. He should have had his head down, should have been training, concentrating on what he's doing. It's a big fight, 4 titles on the line against Usyk. It's like, looking at that, preparation is the key.
Well, just kind of summing up on AJ, you mentioned Ben Davison there. I think one of the things people have highlighted about Ben before is our experience, how many fighters has he trained from scratch, etc. Does this kind of, the work he's done with AJ, does this kind of disprove that theory of like, maybe sometimes you don't need the experience, but if you're good enough, you're just good enough. If you can pick something up, like, say, because there's a lot of fighters that turn professional late, with no amateur background, so that kind of proved that sometimes if you've got a good boxing brain and you can kind of learn the craft, bring a team together, you can make it work.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you've got to remember with Ben Davison, I think the first time he ever came to light is that he did Billy Joe Saunders' corner in Scotland in some leisure centre somewhere, just his mate. So that's probably 2016. So that's 8 years ago. So that's nearly a decade. So 8 years of being around training people. He's had Lee Ward, he's had other fighters, he's had a lot of experience with characters. That's what it's about, boxing. It's learning and finding the right coach to fit the fighter. Look at Ricky Hatton with Billy Graham. Billy Graham was the best coach that Ricky ever had. But he didn't really train. He trained other people. He did a bit with Matt Mackin and all these other fighters. But the success he had was with Ricky, because they had the understanding of each other. And I think, and speaking from my own experience with the fighters who've done really well with me, it is always the fighters that you have the best relationship with. So, Ben's obviously developed this now, how to deal with these, elite fighters and the character of them and the little ways that they've got, and knows how to guide them where they need to be. And sometimes it's a battle, saying to them, look, you need to take a day off today, or you need to push harder today. You've got to have that, and you've got to have the confidence to tell these big guys, look, no, we're not doing that today, we're doing this. And especially when you've got every other Tom, Dick and Harry whispering in their ear what they should be doing. They should be sparring. You need somebody to steer the ship and take control. It can't be the fighter doing it. It can't be the fighter saying, I need to do it. It's got to be somebody who's can take an overview of the situation and say, this is the direction we're going in and we're sticking to this. That's what you need. And obviously Ben's developing that skill now, and guiding Joshua in that way.
Because Ben's said it himself a few times. He feels like he's one of the most critiqued trainers out there, and AJ is probably the most critiqued fighter. Obviously, just from my perspective, watching what people say, it's probably semi true. Do you think this kind of maybe he's kind of proved his point now that he needs to be respected as a coach?
I don't think you need to prove your point. It's like, so what if you're the most critiqued? It's because you're up in the firing line, and you're up in the firing line for a reason, because you're doing the work. Like a lot of the other people aren't, because they've got their head under the radar, and they're not in the limelight, are they? So whenever you're in the limelight, you're going to get critiqued. You're going to get shots fired at you, and that's all part of the game as well. How resilient you are to criticism. So who cares? Like you don't need to prove to people. And if you're doing it and you're active and you're making a living training fighters and you're working at a high level, then, and it's how long you work at that high level for. So if you get to that point and you do it for a good 10 years, you prove yourself. So Ben's just coming into that situation now where, when you think about it, he's worked with Billy Joe Saunders, he's worked with Tyson, you know what I mean? And now he's with another top heavyweight. So, and AJ's been with a few other trainers, but this is his second fight with Ben, or third? Second fight. So this might be it now, it might be every single fight. And also it will be an advantage to AJ having Ben training me for boxers Tyson, because there will be an insight. Ben's not going to say, I can't really tell you that, Joshua, because he's my mate, or you had a good relationship. It's like, Tyson chose a different trainer, Ben's gone a different route. He'll have got insight into the mindset of Tyson. And sometimes that's invaluable when you're training a fighter.
I asked Tyson a few times, and I think he's been asked quite a few times what he thinks of the fact that Ben's training AJ, and he's always, to be fair, said it's a good decision by AJ to do that. So he's always respected it, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's not really a decision, is it? It's just as a boxing trainer, you've got to take the work on board. Like I said, Tyson, when Ben was training Tyson was going through a difficult period of time, being off on his drugs ban, going through the mental health issues. Ben served his purpose there. It was an hard time, and maybe couldn't do the work he wanted to do, because he's not only dealing with having to train Tyson, he's having to dealing with what Tyson's issues are as well. So he's moved on from that, and obviously learned from that, and had success onwards from that. Lee Wood, obviously Joshua, other fighters he's got coming through. He's only a young kid. I don't think he's, 30 odd. So he's got plenty of time, and he's got time to learn. So that experience, that situation with Freddie Roach in the corner with Tyson that time, and it's all a learning. You put it in your bag and you pull it out when needed, and he's learned from that. So that's how you become successful. I was speaking to somebody at a show last night, and he was just starting out in boxing, and I can't believe I've met Dominic Ingle. I went, listen, I said, it's all smoke and mirrors boxing, it's all experience. I said, years and years ago when I was 27, I had, the fortunate experience of meeting Eddie Futch, and I was talking to him, and I just saw this black guy talking in the corner. He was actually training Wayne McCulloch at the time, and I had no idea who this guy was. And I'm listening to the stories, I'm thinking, he must be somebody, this fella, because of the stories and the fighters he's talking about. Then I realised it was Eddie Futch. So I met him a few times, caught him at breakfast, had a chat to him, and then 6 months later I was in Denmark, and I met Angelo Dundee. He was training a kid called Leif Kieske, a Swedish kid who was boxing out of Denmark. And I was talking to him about how he started, and he started in his brother's gym, sweeping up, giving the kids drinks, bits of orange, just making himself busy. And listen to them stories. I go down every morning, have breakfast with him, and listen to the stories, just listen to him talking. And the experience you get from those fighters, involved in the biggest fight of the day, Fraser and Ali, and the coaches, and listen to the experience of them. You can't buy that. So you get in front. Like I said, the fighters these days, the coaches coming through, the decent ones, it's like Shane McGuigan, Ben Davidson, so just probably two of the ones coming up now.
Do you think some of these young trainers, I don't know if they've got the opportunity to be around you, because obviously experience passes on to experience, the benefit of being around you?
Not really, because you've got to, when I came through, I didn't actually stop training people properly till I was 27. But from the age of 18, I've said this before, I was a timekeeper, and I also had a seconds and cornering license. So from the age of 18 to 27, although I wasn't training people, I was going to all different countries, cornering fighters, because we had so many fighters. And my dad was saying this gym, so he'd arrange fights. He'd be in Belgium, Germany, Italy, Finland, Denmark. You'd be all over. I'd be taking these kids, these 50 fighters. There were a lot of work on the continent in them days. So the experience, me at 19 and 20, with these kids who were 24, 25 boxing, I could do the cuts, bandaging, I could do everything. I could corner them, I could coach them from the corner. I knew how to carry on. You get that. I had 10 years of running around on the continent before I even kind of got into training people properly. So that's where the experience, and I think, I've got people in my family, Luca, my nephew, teaching him the stuff, because I'm with him on a daily basis, and he really wants to do it. And I think for the other coaches, you could say Shane's had a bit of experience off his dad. Not that his dad coached anybody, but he'll have had some stories. He was brought up in that environment when his dad was boxing, the stressful situation, having to deal with getting beat, making money, losing money, getting sued. I think I got sued by Barney Eastwood. It's up and down. There's pressures every day you're having to deal with, and living in that environment kind of toughens you up, and you learn from it, and you learn all about the people in boxing, the ups and downs, the snakes and the ladders. So that's all part of the game when you're training people, because you're dealing with so many characters. You're not just dealing with a fighter. You're not just dealing with a fighter when you're training him. You're dealing with his manager, his promoter, the people hanging around him, the sponsors. Everybody wants a piece of that pie. And the thing is, what you're saying is, you've got this pie, what you're trying to make, this fantastic pie, and everybody's trying to take pieces of it before you've cooked it. And you're thinking, Jesus, I can't get this right because all these people are interfering. And when you're allowed to do your job properly and bake the cake properly, everybody has a much better experience out of it. But these other people can't wait. They haven't got, they can't delay the gratification. They want the photos. They want you to roll up for this event. Can't do this training day, doing that. And as a trainer, you need to get control of your fighter so you can execute what you need to do, because that is the life and soul of the party. The training, the fighting, the grinding.
That's a fascinating analogy of for any young fighter coming up. But there'll be people watching thinking, who's Eddie Futch? But just to let them know, you trained Joe Fraser, Ken Norton, Larry Holmes and Trevor Burbeck. All four of them beat Muhammad Ali, and he was in the corner for all of them, so that's some serious experience. And just moving on to Joseph Parker, you touched on him there. Again, same sort of thing, nobody expected him to win again. He's took on a fight that I know for a fact, the fighter wanted to fight Zhang. And he put his hand up, said, yeah, I'll fight him. And in most people's eyes, he won most of the rounds against Zhang, apart from the knockdowns, and then obviously won most of the rounds against Wilder. What does that say about him?
Yeah.
And Andy Lee's work as well.
Yeah, with Joseph Parker, I wasn't overly impressed when he boxed Deontay Wilder, because I don't think Deontay Wilder gave him enough to think about. So I didn't know whether that result flattered him or not. And obviously, he got that out of the way. He beat Deontay, and I more or less said it was a case of it's Deontay Wilder snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. It was a fight he should have won on paper, but Parker came in there, did his stuff, beat him. Then he's back out again, boxing Zhang, does the same thing. Gets put down, gets back up off the floor, and starts
knockdowns as well.
Yeah, heavy, got back up, and that just shows you. And when you think the ups and downs, like we said before, the ups and downs had in his career, getting beat by Joyce, and then obviously doing in the fella who's beat Joyce.
And everyone said he should have retired after the Joyce fight.
Well, but there you go. What everybody says, and that's going back again. That when you're making mistakes or the chips aren't in your favour. Sometimes the process of just carry on doing what you're doing, moving forward. Look at Joshua, the same thing again. 2 or 3 losses on his record, kept on going, and he's where he is. He looks like now in all that group of heavyweights. I think the top 5 heavyweights: Usyk, Fury, Joshua, the other fella from down London, Dubois,
yeah.
And who else have we got? And Parker. So they're the 5. They're the top 5. Usyk inevitably, he's got to be rated as the number 1, even though he's only got 1 belt, because he's
got all the belts.
Well, sorry, all the belts. Yeah. Yeah. So he's got to be rated the number 1. But from when Tyson boxed Ngannou, how the horizon has changed now. The
landscape of boxing.
Yeah.
With the Joseph Parker, so he's beaten both of them guys. So you said the Wilder fight initially flattered him. Did this fight then show, even if the best Wilder turned up, there's a very good likelihood it would have been the same type of result?
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying to you. So the period of time, the time that Wilder had out has obviously affected him. That maybe the fights with Tyson has took a lot of him. Maybe the fights with Wilder has took a lot out of Tyson. Maybe that's the result of the Ngannou, fight. So, do we know? Is Tyson deteriorating? Has he been, coasting for too long? Has he settled into his role as like he thinks he's the top heavyweight, and is that far in front of everybody? He doesn't have to do anything. Apollo Creed on the bicycle in his training room while, Rocky's smashing the ribs of beef and the half carcasses, and he's thinking this is going to be an easy fight. Is Tyson in that position? Where's the incentive? Usyk's still wanting to make that big money.
I'm going to come to the big landscape. Just wrapping up on Joseph Parker then. So, most people's eyes, Zhang was undefeated because they felt he beat Hergovich, even though he didn't get the decision that night. And we saw Joe kind of neutralise a lot of the stuff he was doing. Where does kind of Joseph Parker sit in this heavyweight mix now? Because, we can kind of wrap it up in this moment. With regards to Joe, where does he sit for you? Like, if you was just to say, like, is he better than Tyson? Is he better than Wilder? Sorry, not better than Wilder, better than AJ? Where does he kind of fit into that top 4 or 5?
He's like the Joe Frazier, isn't he? He's one of them type of kids who just keeps slinging it in the mix. Where would he be? I think he beats Dubois.
Dubois didn't want him.
No, he beats Dubois. He doesn't beat Usyk. He doesn't beat Joshua, because I think he's obviously boxing before anyway, even with this resurgence he's got. Zhang can bang, I like that one. But he's not the fittest. And power soon diminishes when, you know, you're not fit. You can have the power if somebody's stood in front of you. If you've got to chase somebody down and then land them shots, that's a lot of effort. So all you've got to do is keep away from him. It's a simple thing. He can punch, but he's not a fast mover. You've got to be careful of. He's a fast mover who can punch. So I think Joyce, you've got to put him in, you know. You've got to put Usyk, Joshua. On the performances of Tyson and Parker at this moment in time, you've got to rate Parker above Tyson.
And where does Andy Lee kind of fit into the fact that of you know, play a part in Joe's resurgence? Because we've seen again another upcoming trainer, obviously been around for a while, but he's shown his worth in.
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing again. Andy Lee's work. I mean, Andy Lee worked with Jason Quigley as well.
Did you train Billy against Andy Lee? Or?
No, that was Adam Booth.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, Adam Booth.
Tibbs weren't it?
No, Adam Booth trained Andy Lee, and I think maybe Mark Tibbs trained Billy for that one. So obviously, same thing again. They found that relationship, what works for them. You know, maybe that's Andy Lee's more attentive to what Joe Parker needs. And he's got nothing to lose, Joe Parker. They're getting a lot of money to put the neck on the line. And this is the issue, what's been the problem in boxing in the past in the UK, is that the fighters, I know from experience myself over the years, that you're asked to go into career-defining fights with a lot of risk and no really reward unless you win. Now, that's why half the fights don't get made. And then when you don't win, you get pushed out to the side, you don't get a fight. And as a fighter, you can't do that. And I always remember having a meeting with Sky years ago, you know, why aren't we getting these big fights made? Because they're not getting paid the money they should be getting. Now the money's getting paid in Saudi, and it's a lot of money. It's life-changing. I mean, I don't know how much Parker got. How much did he get?
I've got no idea, but I'm guessing millions.
Right, say he got over 5 million quid. Let's say he got 10 million quid. Yeah, get in and fight anybody for that. And Ngannou got paid how much for getting knocked out by Joshua? 20 million?
I think that's what's reportedly out there.
Right, so
but more than it's ever made in
right,
UFC
so
career.
you're going to take them risks. You're going to put your neck on the line. You're going to take the risk, aren't you? And so people are getting the fights that they want. They're getting more of the fights they want now. Now these fights are going to Saudi than they ever have.
So I think it's a fascinating period in the heavyweight division. So I'm going to ask you, could you rate your top 5 in the heavyweight division right now?
I couldn't really give him an order, I don't think, because...
If I just drop the obvious names to you, obviously you've got Fury, Usyk, AJ, you've got Parker, Dubois, Joyce. They're like the obvious names out there, even Wilder.
If I'm going to go on, if I'm going to assume that everybody at the best...
And it's got to be where they are right now.
Well, where they are right now, then you're going to have to say Usyk. You're going to have to say Joshua, Tyson, Joyce, and then Dubois. And the reason I'm saying that...
Putting Parker in that top 5?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Parker. So I'm going to say Usyk, Joshua, Tyson, Parker, Dubois.
Interesting list, that.
Reason being that, you know, Parker's coming good, but he's been beat by Tyson, been beat by...
Joshua.
Sorry, beat by Joshua, yeah. So he's been beat by Joshua. I don't think... he's obviously trained with Tyson. They sparred.
Yeah.
I think...
They'll never fight. I don't
think they'll ever fight because they're friends, but I think if they did, Tyson would beat him. But that's the order. Usyk, Joshua, Tyson, Parker, Dubois.
Well, let's see how that pans out.
I got a question for you. Where can discipline take you? Discipline points you toward your goals.